Okay, guys, you will have a short quiz later in class, and I'm also going to pull a small group with you. But before we do that, I want to make sure we have some things clear. So, in algebra, when we solve, we blank operations with blank or opposite operations. I need you to think about when we solve an equation, we work backwards. So we undo operations with inverse or opposite operations. So if we're going to undo things, we need to know our opposites. So the opposite of multiplication is, you should know this, division. The opposite of division is multiplication. And then the opposite of addition is subtraction. And then finally, the opposite of subtraction is addition. Okay, so whenever we are solving, we work backwards and we have to undo. So if we have multiplication, we divide. If we have division, we multiply. If we have addition, we use subtraction. And if we have subtraction, we use addition. So, if you are undoing addition or subtraction, always, your goal is to make a 0. Addition or subtraction, you want to make a 0. Okay? So, you write the opposite of what you see. So, say I had 2x and I was solving an equation and I wanted to undo it. It was a positive 2x. Well, the opposite of addition is, nice, subtraction. So we subtract 2x. If I have positive 2 and I take away 2, I'm going to get 0. 0x, which is 0. Okay? Here, if I have negative 3 and I'm trying to undo it, well, the opposite of negative, or you can think of it as a subtraction, is addition. I'm going to add 3. So I do the opposite of what I see. Negative 3 plus 3. Okay, you can check that in your calculator. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. So negative 4.5. If I wanted to get rid of that when I was solving an equation, it's negative, so that's like subtraction. The opposite is addition. Add 4.5. So we can check ourselves. Negative 4.5 plus 4.5 equals 0. So to review, when we're undoing an addition and subtraction, our goal is to make a 0. So if we see something positive, we write the negative version of it, because a positive 3 and a negative 3 equals 0. A positive 100 and a negative 100 equals 0. Okay, now this is where we have to think differently. If you're undoing multiplication or division, the goal is to make a 1. The goal is to make a 1, because this is when you're trying to get 1x. You're trying to get 1x alone, okay? The only way to get a 1 when dividing is to divide by what is already there, okay? So, for instance, if I want to know, if I have negative 5 and I want to get a 1, a lot of you guys will tell me to divide by positive 5 because you think opposite. No. What is opposite? If we have negative 5x, that's multiplication. The opposite is division. And then you have to know your goal is a 1. So if I do negative 5 divided by 5, I get negative 1. So I have to divide by what I see. Negative 5 divided by negative 5. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 equals positive 1. Okay, so here I have 5x. It's being multiplied. I undo multiplication with division. So notice I drew my fraction or division sign. So my goal is to make a 1. So what am I going to divide by? Not negative 5. Watch, 5 divided by negative 5 gives me negative 1. I divide by what I see. I'm going to divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 is positive 1x. Okay, here I have negative 6x being multiplied. We undo multiplication with division. So I have multiplication here. When I undo it, I divide. My goal is to make a 1, so I'm going to test. Negative 6 divided by positive 6 gives me negative 1, not right. I'm supposed to divide by what is already there. So I should be dividing by a negative 6 because that gives me a positive 1. So now I get 1x. Over here, negative 3 and x are smushed. That means it's multiplied. We undo multiplication with division. So what do I divide by to get a 1? If you said negative 3, you're correct, because a negative divided by a negative is positive, so we get positive 1x. And then over here, 7x. These are smushed, they're being multiplied. We undo that with division. So 7x, when we undo it, we divide by what? Check your work in your calculator. What do I divide by? Okay, after you've done that problem, you're gonna flip over. Okay, now this is what it would look like in an equation. The first thing I would do if I see an equation I'm solving is draw the river. And the second thing I need to note is what operations are happening. So I find my variable's on this side, and I need to know what operation is currently happening. If 3 and x are smushed, that means it's multiplication. Okay? So the question is, how do we undo this? Well, let me look back. The opposite of multiplication is division. Okay. So I know that I have to divide on both sides. But what's my goal with division? Am I trying to get a 0 or a 1? Well, the goal of division is to make a 1. So we're thinking over here, how do we make a 1? 3 divided by what gives me 1? I want you to tell me, you are going to do the work, 3 divided by what number would give me 1? Make sure you do it on both sides. You are doing the division property of equality. Go ahead and divide to get a 1 on both sides. Okay, after that, we're moving here. First thing we do is draw the river. Second thing we do is find the variable. It's over here. Here's my x. Okay, I need to know what operation is happening right here. We have x minus 32. So what operation is that? Nice. That is subtraction. So what's the opposite of subtraction? Right? We know that that is addition. Okay, so with the goal with subtraction and addition is to make a 0. So we want to move this minus 32 away from x. So what am I going to do in order to get a 0 over here? Whatever you do, you're doing the addition property of equality, and you have to do it to both sides. So go ahead and do that. Okay, over here it asks what operation. Let's be clear, guys. We want to know what operation is happening right here between these. I want you to fill in how we undo and your goal. Same thing here. What operation? What is this? If we are adding and we need to move the 14, the operation, what the operation currently happening, write how we undo it and write the goal. When you're done, you should have solved this one and solved this one. And these, I want you to fill out these 3 answers. And if you feel confident, you can solve 3 and 4. When I pull you into a small group, this page should be filled out with a bunch of work beyond what we have already written down. You should be doing your own work that I've asked you to do. Stop the video and work on this page.